Yes, my brother, how you doing, man?
I'm blessed.
Yeah, it's another good day to be here, man.
Always, man. How are you?
Can't complain, can't complain.
Good.
I'm gonna do some investigation at the moment, and I was wondering if you can educate me on quantum science, please.
Quantum science, quantum mechanics, the word quantum just means how much of. There's a lot of quantum talk at the moment, especially what's going on with AI. And yeah, quantum just means how much of. If you were to talk about the construction industry and you were to talk about, doing sort of quantum surveying, quantum would just mean, how much of this project is valued, or what's the valuation of this project, so how much financially. When you're talking in regards to science and we talk about quantum mechanics, we're measuring how much in reference to the probability of a particle being in a certain position at a certain time. So quantum really is just how much of something. That's the etymology of the word. That's really what it means. When we talk about quantum mechanics, we're really just talking about the probability of a particle being in a certain position at a certain place and time. So that's all it really means. But life is quantum. We don't know what happens tomorrow. We have to do what we can in the time we have now that is deterministic, to translate that into odds in our favor, to increase probabilities. When we reference quantum and quantum mechanics and quantum science into our own lives for self-development, what we're really looking to do is increase the chances for something that we want to happen that hasn't happened yet. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. So when we talk about increasing the chances for things happening in our lives, things that we want to happen, we have to understand that they don't come from nowhere. Everything has to come from a place. Everything has its source. And when it comes to your dreams or anything that you want to achieve with your life, it has to come from you. And you are essentially the source. What has got a lot of people in a difficult position nowadays especially is that there's so many different sources that you can never feel that you are the source yourself, and that you have to get your opinions, your thoughts, your beliefs, or anything that you believe is going to help you or assist you with your life, you get them from everything else but yourself. So that now that you'll get questions that come up in your life and you can't find the answers because those questions aren't even coming from you. They're coming from things that you've seen somewhere else, or they're based off things that you've seen from somewhere else. And because those concepts haven't come from you, when the question comes to you, you can't have the answer. Or it's difficult at least for you to find the answer, because essentially you're answering a question that has come from a source outside of yourself. When we talk in terms of probability and trying to realign our lives with our beliefs and living lives true to ourselves, if you have looked at other sources as a means to find your way to do something that you want to do with your life, you're never going to find the correct answers as long as the source is never you. You have to head towards your vision or towards whatever goal that you have with a very specific understanding that you are the source. Whatever you think you can achieve, but the questions that will come to you through your journey will have to rely on you for being the source to answer those questions. In terms of creating change has to come from you. So even when you're looking to create change, in your own life, you have to be the source for that change. A lot of people are seeing things from other people, or even going to their friends, their family, and as long as the source is never going to be you, you're never going to really be the one to find and answer your own questions. Essentially, you end up living somebody else's life, because now the questions you've asked somebody else, they've given you answers, and now that's altered and shifted your belief system, because you're listening to them and you're intaking that. And what does that do to your quantum? What does that do to your probability? Your probability is messed up now, because your probability is essentially headed towards whatever they've decided your probability to be. So if you're going towards people who you may believe they care about you, you may be under the impression that these people care about you, and I'm sure that they do to some extent, but no one's going to care about your goal or your dream or your vision as much as you will. And that's why it's key the questions come from you, and that you're essentially alone but not lonely. And those are gems even that I've gotten from people I've had to surround myself with. The journey has had to come from within, and you will end up putting yourself in positions where you now get to be yourself, and you get to leverage the environment around you now, because instead of being and feeling lonely even amongst people, you can now know that you can be yourself on your own, but with other people that are resonating with you, and that you're the source now in your own field. Everything that you want to achieve, everything that you want to do is now possible because you're around people who, or you're in an environment that allows you to be who you are, truly who you are. There's strength in being yourself, finding the answers and putting that over a long period of time. The probability is now in your favor as long as you've remained true to yourself, and that's the whole point. You know, the second you start deviating and you're talking to other people and taking on what they're saying word for word, and it's not always going to be right, but you have to decide ultimately what's right and what's right for you. And as long as you're acting with good intentions, the odds will always be in your favor. You have to deal with people in your life to make things happen. You know, as long as you're acting with good intentions, over enough people, over enough time, you know, those intentions will fruit to something. But there has to be trust within that process. But you can't trust something you've never spent time doing. So you also need to give yourself time. And we'll do this in another video, but you know, I have a whole understanding of how, you know, how we can relate time to stress and how boxing yourself in, but that's for another time.
So obviously, all in all, we're just really looking at how the mind works and how much information we can carry and how we more or less deal with it or react or proact to the things that are going on around us, basically, right?
Yeah, you always have to be aware of who you are relative to what's around you. Losing yourself to everything around you is losing yourself. Essentially, in order to control and have a more deterministic future for yourself and make things less probable against you and more probable in accordance to what you want to achieve, and making those things likely, when we want to increase likelihood of our dreams coming true and the vision coming true and the goals coming true and hitting our targets and setting goals and smashing through them, to make all of that likely, you have to do things that act within increasing the probability and making it so less quantum and more deterministic. The more you understand about yourself, the more you understand about what you've experienced, the more you know who you are, you know, the more we're controlling the quantum mechanics of our life. Things aren't deterministic in a sense where they're just fixated on what you might be perceiving to be negative. We can always change it to something more positive and use quantum in a way in our favor, essentially. So we can use the unpredictability of life and the motion that it carries and the change in likelihood of things to our favor by what intentions we have with the life that we have and the life and the time that we're using. Things get techie. Like when we enter the world of probability, like who knows what happens tomorrow? Like no one can really say like this is exactly what's gonna happen tomorrow, other than the fact that the sun rises, and that's what makes things deterministic enough for us to be able to have some control over the outcome. That's what understanding quantum mechanics and using it in self-development and this understanding of probability, that's what it's really all about. It's using what we have available to us, which is all you can do. You can't do more than what you have, because it's not there. And that's fine. If you start comparing yourself to other people and what they have, that's when it becomes a problem. Because now all of a sudden, your expectations have changed. You have to manage your own expectations. And the minute you start expecting the world and getting nothing back in return is the minute that you start losing yourself. Because now you're chasing something that doesn't even exist, that you never even had. And that probably explains quite a lot of the way that people think nowadays. You know, they want quick returns, things that don't make sense, and they've never even put in a days of work. And that's what doesn't make any sense. You need to deserve it. Like, if you haven't done anything to deserve it, then technically, why act like you are owed it? And this doesn't make sense. And it's funny, the hardest working people that you'll ever come across in your life act every single day without expectation, with knowledge that they have to do X amount of work to get a Y amount of result. You can't expect something for nothing. But what you choose to do with your time, how you choose to live your life, it is determined by what your vision is, and your vision is determined by who you are and who you understand yourself to be. And this is how you create a more deterministic lifestyle, and you drop the probability, or at least you work with probability and the unknown in your favor. Things don't have to be out of whack. Life doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be completely disorganized. It doesn't need to be this very existential, complicated situation. You have what you have, and that's perfectly fine, and you work with that, and you work with what you have to increase the chances of what you want to achieve in your favor, and you do that on a daily basis until you get it. And that's really as simple as that. There's nothing more you can do. There's no one person that's gonna fix, and who's to say fix, like life is broken. Nothing is broken. It's about how you perceive your own life and what the chances of something are to happen. But you're increasing your chances every single day with the more work that you do.